termos de tempos de enormes transformações
These are changing times at a geopolitical, technological level. It's vital Europe guarantees strength and digital voice. The EU, and we've understood that they've made decisive steps, abandon an external dependency that is installed from China and US, giving steps in cybersecurity, and also in semiconductors, with quite a vast experience in innovation policies and technological sovereignty. We have Alessandro Copelli, who will be addressing us.
Good morning, I'm Alessandro, I'm Italian, I live in Belgium, and I'm here to talk to you about European tech sovereignty. Maybe let's start on what it is. If a few years ago you came to Brussels or to some of the EU capitals, you would probably hear a lot about open strategic autonomy, meaning our ability as EU to make our own technology choices and shaping global events while remaining open. Then geopolitics happened, Donald Trump happened, so if you come to Brussels or you go to the capitals today, you will hear more and more talking about tech sovereignty. It's a bit the same thing, but with a different accent. So what we are discussing today is whether we can create European technology alternatives to avoid creating dependencies, especially from just the US and China, while trying still to keep open. Ultimately, what this is about is industrial leadership. It means creating a future in which our children and the children of our children can continue working and producing in a new economy that is innovative. But what is exactly European tech sovereignty? Let's unpack it with this image. There is this movement in Brussels called Eurostack to create a European technology stack that identified 3 layers. The first one on top, you see it, is the services. It's the one that you know the best. It's the apps, the systems, the search, and all those things that we use mostly as consumers. The second layer, it's the one that has to do with data, with cloud. And so it starts getting a bit more complex, closer to software. And the basic layer, the basis layer, is connectivity, it's networks, it's the tangible and physical one, where you also have chips and in the future also quantum computing. But how is Europe doing on these 3 layers of technology stack? Well, this is a research that was done by SEPS in Brussels, and it shows you that as Europe, yes, I put a star where we are. We are here and there. We have some important strengths. But as you can see, we are very dependent across the technology stacks, especially from the US and China. Does this matter? As Mario Draghi told us in his report on the future of European competitiveness, the response is yes. It matters, because if we do not create the next innovation and the next wave of technology, what are we going to produce in the 2030s and 2040s? Now, let me tell you, as somebody who works in telecoms, why connectivity and competitiveness are linked. Mario Draghi explained it very well in his report. One of the reasons why Europe is lagging behind is because it is not innovative enough. And then that leads us to a gap in productivity. And one of the key factors for that is the connectivity ecosystem. If we have a strong connectivity ecosystem, we have the roads to build our growth for the futures in the next 20, 30 years. So let me tell you a bit of a story of where we are in terms of competitiveness as connectivity ecosystem. As every good story, it has the good, the bad, and the ugly. I will start to the good because I want to be positive. The good is that 4.7% of the European GDP comes from the connectivity ecosystem. Just to give you an idea, you don't see on the headlines of the newspapers every day talking about networks or telecoms. But this is the comparison. Agriculture and fisheries is 1.7% of the GDP, and automotive 7% of the GDP. Now, this is the good, and it means that we need to invest more in the connectivity and digital ecosystem, and that we can grow more the European economy. Let me give you the bad, because the story continues. The bad is that today the revenues and returns in the telecom industry are not where we would like them to be. Look here. In the past period, the mobile average revenue per user went down in real terms by around 5%, worse than our global peer, also in absolute terms. And a chart that became famous in the Draghi report, if today you start in the business of telecoms, your returns will be lower than the cost of the investment. This is not something that can work in the long term. Now, I conclude with the ugly for my story, and I bring you to Rome during my Christmas holidays. I was walking towards the Vatican, and I see that an Italian mobile operator offers one of the most sophisticated services, which is 5G, data, communications, for €7.95 a month. I do a few steps more towards the Vatican, and I see that we offer an average panino together with an average beer. I can tell you, you can find better than Peroni in Italy, for more than 1 month of communications. And I said to myself, how can we proceed as society if we value a panino and a beer more than a sophisticated level of connectivity that can empower not only individual users, but also manufacturers and SMEs. This brings me to concluding with the ugly, which is the investment conditions. If you care about prices, maybe it's a problem only of telecom shareholders, but investment is something that is relevant for the whole of society. And here, for the first time in 10 years, in 7 years, we saw that the total sector investment in telecoms is going down by 2%. And also, if we compare ourselves to the rest, to China, to the US, the average investment per capita is lower in Europe than elsewhere. Now, let's go back a bit to the positives. If we were at the beginning of the 19th century, probably we will be looking at roads and energy as the infrastructure for our future. Now, we are sitting at the beginning of the 21st century, so our future is about gigabit networks, it's about 5G, it's about fiber. So how are we doing there? And also here I start with the good. On 5G, with the basic 5G, the 5G for the Lady Gaga and Cats videos, we are almost at 90%. A bit less than the others, but we are doing good. And also on fiber, you see it here, fiber to the home, even if countries like Portugal are doing better than the average, this is the average. 70% of the European households covered by fiber to the home. Now, let's go and see the a bit more critical things. 5G standalone. 5G standalone is the 5G that manufacturers need to change their business model and innovate. And here we have only 40% population coverage compared to the North America and Asia that are doing better. And what does that mean? It means that a European manufacturer does not have access to the same connectivity technology than an American or a Chinese one. This is a problem of competitiveness that we want to fix. Also, if we continue investing at the current pace, at the end of this decade, 2030, 45.4 million people will still be unconnected from fiber. And this is also something that we want to fix. But what about innovation and the services? Let's take a step up in that Eurostack that I showed you later. And here, I'm looking at the services in the areas of cloud and AI, and which role telecom operators are playing. Also here, good news and some less good news. I'll start from the good news. APIs. APIs are what transform our networks into platforms and allow innovators, allow companies, allow entrepreneurs to plug into the powerful 5G smart networks and create their own application for a port, for a hospital, for a transport system. And there, Europe and European telecom operators are leading the pack because 40% of the API in telecoms come from European operators. But what about another aspect of innovation, which is edge cloud? And here, edge cloud is bringing the computing capacity at the edge of the network, not in some remote data centers, but in the telephone mast close to you. It's the one that empowers a manufacturing plant. Here we have a target as Europe to have 10,000 edge nodes by the end of the decade, and we are only at 10% of that target. Now, innovation is also AI, and as telcos, we are both users and enablers of AI. On the user side, I can tell proudly that more than half of our members of the European telcos are using AI for network automation. Basically, you plug in language models so that the network functions are automated, they go faster, I can give better services and also more secure services. But as telcos, let's not remember that networks are one part of the infrastructure behind AI. What is AI? AI is data that needs to be pooled and create intelligence, and that data needs to move from one place to another. So for the first time this year, we calculated which impact this will have on data traffic, and we found that there will be an increase of 50% of data traffic related to data centers because of AI. So we should start thinking of telecom networks also as a key enabler of the AI revolution. What does this all mean? I rushed you through the layers of the European technology stack. I told you that we have some good basics, but that we need to invest more in networks. And I also told you that we have some investment gaps. What I'm pledging for today, what we are all aware since the Draghi report hit the desks of prime ministers of the European Commission, is that we need change and action. We are very good with the analysis in Europe. Sometimes we are less good at taking action and changing things. So if we look at policy, because we are a regulated sector, in the 90s we were one of the first to be regulated. What are the things to watch out to know if good change is going to come from the EU? First one, will there be scale? Can you imagine 40, 50 small European telecom operators competing globally and sitting at the same table as tech giants like Meta or Netflix? We need scale, we need bigger telecom operators. Look out for the review of the EU merger guidelines. And the big question there is Europe gonna tell us that our only job is only to keep prices low? Or is our job also to do quality, to empower industrial complexes? Second one, will there be more network investment? And for that, let's look out for the Digital Networks Act. The EU is going to do a big reform of the laws that regulate telecoms with the view of filling that gap. It's unacceptable that we will have 45 million people unconnected to fiber in 2030. And regulation will need to help us to deliver that higher investment. Last but not least, will there be more innovation? And for that, look out for the Cloud and AI Act. It's coming. The ambition is to reform our rules so that Europeans can federate their cloud and can play a role in the AI game, in the data game, in the cloud game on a fair basis compared to global players. And let's look also at industrial policy. Are we able, as industry, as governments, as European Commission, together to develop a vision for the future of one sector, telecoms, that with its networks and its services is going to enable the future and the future growth for the 2030s and the 2040s. My message is that we have 3 ingredients for this recipe, and I'll put them up here. The first one is deregulate. In Europe, we need to choose which rules are essential, and we need to keep them because they define us as Europeans who care about society, who care about climate, who care about people. But let's remove all the overlapping rules, all the mess that we have created over the years. Second one, I mentioned it before, scale. We need to grow. As Europeans, we need to think of ourselves as a continent that plays at the global level, not just as neighbors who play between one and the other country. One big single market that competes globally at scale. And last one, innovate. We have been saying no to innovation for too long. We need to allow more space, more room for European innovation, because if we don't do it, the others will do it. And that's where the tech sovereignty comes back to where we started. If we want to be independent, able, if we want to give our people the ability of being empowered by European technology and not only by Chinese and American one, which is good, and we need to continue collaborate with them, but we need to have the ambition of developing our own technology, giving it to our children, and create growth for the future. Thanks a lot, and I wish you a great day at the IPDC event.